So fill me in on Shelbie. What's going on?
So we've had her about a year and a half, and she's an emotional support animal for Josiah, and has been absolutely wonderful. And but we're moving from a neighborhood where we don't have a lot of dogs into an elevator building where there will be dogs.
Okay.
And she does not respond well to dogs. She's just highly, very, very reactive. Yeah. And so we just got to figure out how to get around that.
I see you guys have her on a Star Mark collar. Was that
Yeah.
from you just purchased on your own, or is that from a trainer?
A trainer that I had a conversation with recommended it, so I ordered it, but
Okay.
we haven't done any training at all.
Okay. Well, how long ago did you get the Star Mark collar?
3 or 4 months.
Okay, so recently?
Recently, and she rarely wears it. We have a big enough space that most of her outdoor exercise is just running around in the yard, basically.
I see.
We have not walked her a lot.
Okay. So aside from this conversation with the trainer, has there been any training in general to
No.
try to address these issues?
No.
Okay. How soon is the move?
This month, end of the month.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a short window there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else about Shelbie that I should know about, or?
No, she's super happy and
Lots of fun.
yeah.
Lots
She's
of
been a
energy.
great dog. Lots of energy.
Is she ever in the future going to need to go on a plane with Josiah or anything like that? Or
It's unlikely.
unlikely?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm somewhat ignorant on these things. For the ESA, you don't need a letter or anything like that.
You literally just apply online, and so we got a certificate in the mail and
Okay.
a little thing for her collar, and
Whereabouts are you moving to?
it looks like the South Loop right now.
Okay. It's like a high-rise building?
Mm-hmm.
I see. Did they ask anything about her breed or anything like that?
Because we have an ESA certification, they just basically they have to let us take her. So
I guess
yeah,
so. Okay.
and she's fine in the house. Like, she doesn't chew on anything. She doesn't jump on stuff. She's she's really well behaved. She's doesn't go to the bathroom in the house or anything like that. So
It's just the dog reactivity.
exactly,
Does she have any dog friends?
none.
None. Okay. Have you ever attempted to socialize her?
No, we haven't. I mean, we've walked and gotten close to dogs, but that's it. We do have. I have another son who lives a block from us, and he does have a dog. So we've thought about, but I don't know how to do it. Like, I just didn't know what to do because they have their own territory, I assume, which means we'd probably have to do a neutral site or something. I don't know. So okay.
Yeah. And that's stuff that we can talk about. If it's a goal or whatever. The next thing would be, do you know what her threshold is? Like, how far or how close is the dog in proximity before you start to see her become agitated?
Like, if we're on opposite side of a street, she's getting a little bit agitated.
Okay.
If we're on the same sidewalk, once we get close, she goes berserk.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you're walking, there's a dog on the opposite side. Once you're parallel, do we see an increase in agitation, or does she just stay the same?
Yeah, I mean, the closer we are, the more agitated she gets. I try to divert her attention, and then we get a little further, and she calms down and
Okay.
starts looking at squirrels or whatever.
Have you noticed any change by using this Star Mark collar?
We just feel a little more secure.
Okay.
It definitely causes her to pull less,
Okay.
and she's strong. So I've worried that the other collar that we have on, it felt like she could eventually pull out of it even. So this one just feels more secure.
I got you. Did they talk to you anyway about using it as a correctional tool?
Yeah, I mean, just that when she's agitated, to lift straight up with the collar to get her to calm down.
Okay.
That's about it.
Okay. I mean, it's good advice. That's usually what I tell my clients. It's a Band-Aid fix. Ideally, we want to be able to walk past dogs and not
Right.
have to have that worry.
Yeah.
Especially with high-rise buildings. I actually just came from an in-home, which is why I didn't get a chance to review the consult before. But when I first started out training dogs, I was on 11th and Wabash. That's where I was located. So I got a lot of the South Loop area people.
Yeah.
A lot of high-rises, obviously. Some things to expect would be, because we're in a tighter corridor with the hallways, that's usually hard for people getting on the elevator because it's
Yep.
sudden, and
Yep.
all of a sudden there's a dog. That's difficult. The lobby area, because it's come and go, that's typically difficult. And then also just going out into busy South Loop can also be difficult. So, but nothing I've not seen before. So the only thing that I always want to bring to people's attention is you have a pity. Okay, I love pitties. I have a pitty, but they were bred to fight. They're bred to withstand pain and discomfort, right? Because if you have a pit bull in the fight that isn't physically tough, obviously it's going to lose, and well, it's a gambling game, so we don't want to lose, we want to win, right? And the reason why that's important is the star mark. Do you know what an aversive is?
No.
An aversive in dog training is something that's bad to deter something we don't want, like a punisher.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you refer to them as aversive methods.
Okay.
Is tools like the prong collar, star mark collar, remote collar, all that stuff. They're meant to. We can use them to teach behaviors like obedience or whatever. That's true. But we can also use them to correct behaviors we don't want, like the reactivity.
Yeah.
Okay. Is with power breeds, I always kind of warn people, don't be surprised if we end up there, like in terms of intensity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Because they're already bred to be physically tough, and
Yeah.
that's something that we have to take into consideration, because people tend to see their dog's temperament. Oh, my dog, she's a pitty, but she's the sweetest dog.
Right.
Like, yeah, like personality-wise, very sweet dog.
Yeah.
However, can be very physically tough.
Yeah.
And that's what people tend to struggle with.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're dealing with reactivity and we're trying to correct the behavior, so to give you an idea, our e-collar goes 0 to 127 in increments of 1. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 127. To me, I go, okay, you know, the dog's ignoring 80, 90, let's go to 100, and the human's like, I was like, this is what I, warned
Yeah.
you about, right?
Yeah.
But they're not thinking that would happen, and then they think they're making things worse or what have you, which is not the case. It's just the dog is just super tough. Okay. We usually anticipate it with pit bulls, bull terriers, bulldogs, rotties, German shepherds. Like, that's why they're called power breeds. Okay. So it doesn't mean that it will be the case. It just means have an open mind, because there's a possibility that we may be there. Okay.
Sure.
Now, everything that we do makes sense, in my opinion. It's just basic logic. So, for example, the case I just left was it's a doodle, okay, who has separation anxiety to the dad, and he's moving in with the mom right there on Illinois Street, like a huge high-rise. And whenever he leaves, even if the mom is home, the dog freaks out. Okay, and there's obviously other people in the building. They have to get this addressed. But the mom had the most issue with the collar. So we started low. We started at 15 at the class, and we ended at 85. Okay, but we finally got the dog to detach from the dad and then to be calm and passive.
And like over what period of time did you go from 10 to 85?
Over an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, over an hour. I would say 45 minutes actually, because about 45 minutes in, we were like towards the end. But we worked 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, all the way to 85, very incrementally. So go ahead and pull straight up here. Yep, up.
Straight up.
Shelbie,
Now relax.
you're okay.
Good. Now here, may I take her?
Yeah.
So initially, the lower levels was working well for the dog, but once we actually started to pretend that the dad was going to leave, is when our number jacked up to 85,
Got it.
which makes sense in that particular case.
Yeah.
Right. So like right now, because our agitation levels went from kind of 0 to 10 there, when we're in that 10 state, the anticipation is our numbers are probably going to spike because the dog is so kind of jacked up, so to speak. Okay. Now, ideally, we want to address things prior to that state. Okay. So we want to get things before the problem shows its ugly face, right? But sometimes you turn the corner, there's a dog, it's just going to happen.
Sure.
You also have to know how to address those kinds of situations, okay? And so what I meant earlier by, it's common sense is if we were at 25 and the dog wasn't stopping the behavior, it's not working.
Yeah.
So then I go up. But we go up incrementally, because I also have to factor in the hardest part about dog training is the human,
Right.
right? Like I walk in, I'm like, all right, 100, right? But I've done this for 15 years. I already know where I need to go. The human needs to see the process. So if we end up at 100, they go, well, I understand why we're here, because we started as low as 15 and went up incrementally and nothing worked until we hit 100. So then they feel validated, so to speak, that they don't feel as guilty if they have to put the dog at that level.
Okay.
Okay. So the reason why these tools are effective are because Dogs are physical creatures. They nip and bite each other, right? So this here is a dog bite. If you look here, okay? This is 10 stitches. This is from a Great Dane. This dog was not aggressive. This was a dog that didn't want to go in a kennel. He freaked out. It was the first time he was ever trying to be loaded into the kennel, and the only way he knew to stop me was by biting me. Okay, obviously it stopped me. This was for a 4-week board and train. They took their dog back. I said, bring him back once I'm healed up. I'll train him then. Okay, and I didn't tell him the dog was aggressive. I told him your dog freaked out, and that's why this happened. The dog didn't bite anybody prior, has not bit anybody since, and this was back in November of 2019. Okay, so also understanding where the aggression is coming from, because it's very easy to say your dog's human aggressive, give me $4 more thousand, you know. So, but once you understand that dogs are physical creatures, the approaches that we use make a lot more sense. So, for example, your star mark collar. Do you know why it's designed the way it's designed?
No.
Because it has the triangles on it, correct? Those are meant to mimic teeth. Like a dog bite. Okay, same thing with the prong collar, which is like the metal version of this, right? It's meant to mimic a dog bite. To the uneducated person, you look at it and you go, that's barbaric. Like you're just, you know, you're stabbing the dog, you know, what if you puncture the dog? Like these are things that I come across, and I go, no, like, it's literally meant to mimic a dog bite. Okay, because that's how dogs communicate. So these tools are great tools. The problem is, you can only get so intense with your corrections via these tools.
Sure.
Right? So if she's acting up and I go to correct the behavior with this star mark collar, if she's at a 10 and the firmest I can do is a 4, I'm never going to curb the behavior.
Yeah.
Okay? Also, we have like a dog like a German Shepherd. What people don't account for is that their fur acts as a buffer.
Sure.
So then it muffles some of that impact, right? With remote collar, we're not really worried about that. When I work with my couples, right? A lot of times the boyfriend or the male is going to have a stronger correction than the female.
Sure.
Just makes sense, right? So then they go, well, the dog listens to the dad, but won't listen to the mom, and I try to correct them, but my corrections aren't as firm. I go, yeah. When we have remote collar, that's not a problem, because if he's at 40 and she's at 40, it's the same, right? I've even had it where one person's more assertive than the other person, and the more assertive person will have a lower number than the lesser. If that makes sense. So we can even compensate for these situations where one person isn't as confident or as assertive with the dog just through having a higher level of pressure. Okay, so that's why remote collar is my go-to tool. In my opinion, it's the best training tool that there is, because right away we get off-leash control. I'm not worried about so much the size or the strength of the person, as long as they're following the instructions and I know they're willing to go there. We're going to achieve our results, right? And I even had it where, you know, people get emergency situations and the collar is able to regain control again. Because on or off leash, we have contact with the dog. Most common one is dogs running away from fireworks, right? Dogs off leash at the park. Kid blows up a random firework in October. Dog takes off out of fear, but the owner has something to override that fear response to get the dog to return. I've had dogs come across coyote in Lincoln Park. There's coyote out there.
Yeah.
I had one client whose dog was attacked off by an off-leash dog while she was at Oz Park, and she just maxed out the collar, and her dog yipped but ran straight to her. She felt terrible because her dog yipped. I'm like, but if you didn't do that, the dog fight would have continued,
Right.
and then knows who would have happened, right? And nobody was hurt, no dogs were bitten or anything like that, but the dog was attacked by another off-leash dog and was pulled away because of the collar, okay? So that's why for me it's my go-to tool. It's very intuitive. It's very easy to understand. It doesn't require you to become a dog trainer in order to use it effectively, okay? So when I first started my business many years ago, I would show up to you, train the dog in front of you, give the remote to you, and work you through things afterwards, right? To give you a demonstration so you have an understanding. I did that all the way up until COVID. Once COVID happened, people didn't want me coming to the homes anymore. People didn't want me touching their dog, touching their things, right? So we had to do like social distance dog training. So we then started training at Oz Park, and I knew that I could train the dog without having to touch the dog, but nobody would believe me, okay? Until I got my first client, and then she did a testimonial video, and then from there people started signing up because I had somebody that said like, yes, this does work. So we show up, you have your dog, you have your leash, you have your e-collar. I coach you through everything. I don't touch the dog. 99% of the time, I don't touch the dog. If something is like, okay, this looks a little dicey, I'll step in, but otherwise I try to just keep hands off, okay? So that means if Shelbie became reactive and she's in your care, right, I would walk you through it. just kind of like right now, I said, pull up and all that stuff to help de-escalate her. I only took her right now because we have dogs that go through that little hallway there. So I don't want her to agitating over and over again. But with the remote collar, I'm not worried about that anymore because I know we have a tool that's going to get her to settle, and I'm going to walk you through it. So then if she becomes agitated and I walk you through it, you leave here with experience of what to do. So then when you go home and you see a dog, you're like, well, this is what Jesse told me to do. You're going to go through those same things. And the way I teach is I also give you like a step-by-step logic to go by. So if it happens to be a harder situation, you would have enough insight to try to push through it, okay? Do expect that there's going to be failures. It's just part of the process, okay? But if you go to 50 and she's not calming down, what does that tell us?
It's got to go higher.
Got to go higher. Super simple, right? But it doesn't mean I go to 100. The next time I would be at 55. And I just keep going up incrementally until you find like, hey, ever since I hit 80, all of a sudden that reactivity is stopping immediately and it's no longer a struggle. So now you go, the next time I see a dog, I'm just going straight to 80 because that's what worked the last time. And we just kind of build from there.
Got it.
Okay? Questions on any of that stuff?
No, makes sense.
Nope. Now,
Actually, let me ask. So do you do that sort of, I watched a couple of your videos, and so like you do that walking her back and forth in proximity to other dogs? Is that how you?
we would get to that.
Okay.
So most people think when we deal with problem behaviors, we just jump into the problem, and that's not the case.
Okay.
We have to set a foundation first. Okay, so that the dog understands the e-collar, how it turns on and how it turns off. Once we get the foundation down, which just takes a class or two, by the third class, we start to jump into reactivity. Okay, now the other thing is, leash reactivity and leash pulling are the two most common things I deal with in dog training. Okay, so people's most common goals, okay, is we teach the heel command first, which fixes both of those problems right away. Okay, so we have our first class. I give you some exercises, and I go rinse and repeat until I see you next time. Okay. Sometimes people come back and they go, Jesse, the reactivity is 50% better. Like my dog's no longer barking at dogs across the street. It's only the dogs on the same side of the street. I go, great, we got progress already, right? That happens a lot. So then on the second class, you're my feedback. And you tell me, hey, we noticed this improvement, still reactive, but this is already better. I go, great, what we're doing is already impacting her behavior, okay? Class 2, we work on the second half of the heel. We make some tweaks, most likely the levels. Rinse and repeat for another week. Come back, give me feedback. We're still at the same stage and or things are even better, but we had a dog get too close and she reacted. I go, that makes sense, but we've kind of closed that threshold, so to speak, right? The third class would be, I'm gonna bring a dog out and we're gonna do controlled context now. Okay, where we're gonna force the reactivity to then correct the behavior, more so for your experience, right? So one thing that can happen outside is if she's very vocal, and you're trying to correct her, it's going to look worse, right? Because you're trying to tell her to stop something she doesn't want to stop. There's going to be some fight back, possibly vocalization. Is we have the variable of embarrassment, people looking at us, maybe people going like, what the hell are you doing to your dog? All these things that come into play, right? Is when we do controlled context, we can work through these problems without having to worry about the general public, if that makes sense, okay? Once we get the foundation down and the dog knows or learns to turn off in response to the collar, everything is a lot easier because the dog knows what to do. You just have to make them do it now, okay? Otherwise, what we find is that you're out in the world real time trying to teach the dog to turn off. And you have like all these things kind of going on at the same time where you just kind of get flustered, okay? It's part of the process, regardless, like it'll happen most likely at some point, but that's how I try to do things to make it as smooth as possible, okay? I've had it happen to clients where they have the first class, and between class 1 and class 2, they have this terrible situation where an off-leash dog ran up to them or whatever, and they have to get the dog under control, and it looked terrible, but they work through it, and I go, yep, that's just how life happens. Sorry that it happened, but good job on trying to control the situation, okay? Question on any of that?
No. Just so you know what I'm thinking, I have to manage a trust for payments.
Okay.
So I've gotten approval to do 3 classes initially.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what time frame we could spread that over, but that's, we'll get working as soon as, you've got time.
3 classes, and then you have the cost of your collar as well.
Okay. And which is how much?
The collar I'd recommend, for any power breed is the Black Edition. Tina will send you the info. If you
Okay.
get it through us, it is 10% off. The cost with tax before the discount is around $340-ish. After the discount, it drops around $305, $307-ish.
Okay, I'll just pay for that privately.
The collar, I had my first collars for like 12 years before they finally crapped out and I bought new collars. The most common thing that we do see is that the battery does give out. It's a rechargeable lithium battery, much like a cell phone.
Okay.
You get a 1-year warranty. If that happens, you can always send it in. They'll repair it for you, replace it for free. If it happens after the year, you can literally just buy the battery from them or from us. It takes like 5 minutes. It's nothing complicated, but
Great.
that's the most common thing. It is a fully waterproof system, both the transmitter and the receiver, so you're not worried about, if the dog's in the water or whatever. Just want to make sure that the charging tab is closed correctly. I've only ever had one, I think maybe 2 clients in 15 years where they didn't close the tab correctly and water got in there. And what happened is it started to misfire, meaning it was sending the signal to turn on and stimulate the dog without the button being pressed. They set it out to dry. The next day it worked perfectly normal. Okay. But it's not like it just completely craps out or something like that. Okay. So it's an investment, but it is the appropriate collar for your dog. Online, you'll see some that are cheaper. You don't want cheaper. Trust me, you get what you pay for when it comes to the remote collars. And with that particular model, I'm not really worried about anything. If we go with a lesser model, what we risk is the dog overriding the collar. Okay, and I've seen this happen where the output isn't strong enough for the dog to cut through like this, if that makes sense. So that's why we have different outputs. We have low, medium, high, and high. So like a low level output would be for like a 15-pound and under dog. That collar on this dog would be like a mosquito bite. Not gonna do much, okay? With the higher output, it's meant for a 70-pound dog and over, but it's perfectly safe to use on any dog under. It just means you get more from less. So I could put on my 8-pound Chihuahua, he would be completely fine. He would just have a ridiculously low number because he's a very small dog, okay?
Okay. And do I order that through Tina or how do I do that?
Yeah, she'll send you a link and everything. You can either order it for the shipping, it's free shipping, or you can pick it up on your lesson here. Completely up to you, okay? So the 3-class program that you're talking about is meant for cases like this. Okay. It's I call it the Master of the Walk program or whatever. It's meant to target just reactivity and really only reactivity, because it roughly takes about 2 to 3 classes to get stuff like that addressed. If the client came back by class 2 and was like, Jesse, it was a 180, the dog is awesome. I go, cool, maybe we'll squeeze in something else. But it usually takes, because by the 3rd class, it would be, okay, we're doing controlled context to address the reactivity, and then you have to go off and then, of course, rinse and repeat, okay? Do keep in mind that this is a process. So it's not necessarily by the 3rd class, everything is said and done. Things will be much better, but things that typically take longer are like the sudden run-ins with dogs.
Sure.
Turning the corner, the elevator, and all that stuff, but you should have enough know-how to work through it, okay? The only thing that I would say, potentially, is that I know for service dogs, is, for example, if I said, oh, this is a service dog, and I was at the airport, and then she behaved this way, it would get called out.
Totally.
Okay, so I don't know how that works with ESA dogs. What I would say is if they did bring it to your attention, you can just say we're actively working with the trainer to resolve this issue, and that should hold. And I'm happy to send a letter or whatever. It's happened before for you guys to let them know, like, yes, I was hired to address this problem. Okay, question on any of that stuff?
Nope.
Let me think here. One of the most common questions that I get is, when does the e-collar go away? Okay. In my book, when you need it, it doesn't. So this means if she's a great dog in the house, you don't need it. But if you're gonna walk through the hallway, the elevator, the lobby, onto busy South Loop, you need it. Okay. If you're following the directions to the T, over the course of time, the application of the collar drops to the point where you go, I don't remember the last time I pressed this button.
Sure.
Okay. Whenever I get a client that tells me, oh, my walks are great, I only have to press the button 5 times, I know they're not doing something correctly. Okay. Because I want us to get to 0. Okay. So what that most likely is they're too low in the collar.
Got it.
Okay. Or they're not correcting something correctly. They misremember. Most likely with the heel stuff, people tend to just pull back on the dog, which is not what we do. There's a whole process to it. So then if they ever do like refresher class, I'll tell them like, show me what you're doing. And almost always it's what I think they're doing, which is like pulling back on the dog instead of using the remote and doing the process. Okay. As long as you're following the instructions, there really shouldn't be an issue with curbing the reactivity. I will say I have come across this about 5 times in 15 years where I've had a dog override even the collar that I suggest. Okay. What we've done in those situations is you can have a second collar paired to one remote. Okay. Everybody's got a breaking point. It's just, what is that breaking point going to be? Okay. So I always bring it up in these kinds of cases. Plus, I only have a short window of time. Just to make you aware, if it's like, man, we're at 127 and this dog isn't stopping, that means her intensity and possibly the environment, like if it's too close quarter, like that makes sense to me, that one collar may not cut through, okay? So then we take a second collar, we pair it to the system, so then 2 collars go off at the same time. The times that I've used that before, 4 were 150-pound dogs, so it makes sense. One of them, who's actually here today, is an 80-pound pitty, okay? He took 2 collars, but then it came to my attention later on that he was on gabapentin, which is a painkiller. Yes. So now he's back to 1 collar. But when he was on gabapentin, I was like, this is crazy because I've only ever had to do it on a 150-pound dog, right? But he was the first, and then later on, she's like, oh yeah, he was on gabapentin, and I was like, oh, that makes sense now. Okay. So, question on any of that stuff?
Nope.
Makes sense to me.
Okay. With the collar, I can only take as far as you're willing to go. Okay. So like if we get to the controlled context reactivity or whatever, and she's just, you know, being very difficult, because we're going to bring it in close quarter, right? Because if you're going to be in a building and you're going to walk past dogs and stuff, it's going to be close quarter. So I try to press it as close as I can, and it's going to be very stressful for her. Okay. Is if you tap out at 80, and I'm like, well, we got 47 more levels to go. I don't know if she's going to.
That's not going to be. That won't be a problem for us.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah. And of course, just following through post the lesson when you go home, it's the same concept. Okay. Other than that, I mean, it's pretty much it. I don't like star marks. Okay. I don't think the level of control that you get with this is as good. With the remote, as a standard prong.
Oh, okay.
Okay. If you look at like these kind of teeth versus like the prong teeth, like they're different. Like the prong collar feels like teeth. Okay. I'm fine to start with this with the remote collar as your setup, but then if we're feeling like we need more, this is meant to give you physical leverage and control. The e-collar is ultimately what's going to get the dog to cut the crap. Okay. But tools like this, and if you notice when I took her right away, I placed it to the top here. Because at the top of the neck gives you the most control. So once we get the e-collar would be back here. Your star mark would be up here. The moment this comes down to here, it's ineffective. Okay. But with having the e-collar, it'll help keep it in place. This is probably one tooth or one thing too big. Which is also why it can be sliding down. Okay. Part of it is handling skills as well, but right off the bat, the fact that I was able to get it over her flat collar and slide it up already told me like this is probably a prong too big. Okay. So if I were using this with the e-collar, we'll see how it goes after the first class. And if you go, hey, we feel really good and confident with the setup, then I go, great, no need to change anything. Okay. If you feel like it could be better, then I'm gonna go. I would suggest upgrading this to the prong collar. We carry them here, and I can help size and fit it for you. And then from there, that should give us the best control. Okay. But this is really like, let's say you're turning the corner and you're surprised by a dog. This gives you the immediacy. While the e-collar goes to do its work. Okay. I also teach you handling skills so that we're not walking the dog like this with the completely slack leash. And with the way that we use the leash, it'll help keep this higher as well. And then that paired with good training should help us get to our end result. Okay. Anything else?
No. By schedule with Tina?
Correct.
Okay.
So she does go by the contract. And then, so feel free to read the contract. It's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions on it, please feel free to ask the questions. But what can happen is people are asking questions about the contract, and then times get poked up, and then they come back to she's like, oh, well, Jesse doesn't have availability on this day anymore. They're like, oh, what happened? They're like, well, it's first come, first serve. Okay. You guys are coming in at a good time because at the end of the year, like everybody's traveling, like I got a lot of board and trains, but my in-persons I only have like a handful of them right now.
Great.
Okay, so there's some availability.
And how far between, I mean, I know Tina will help figure this out, but it's like once a week for a few weeks?
Ideally once a week.
Okay,
Correct.
great.
I've had people in the past try to squeeze in more within a week, and it's not enough time
Yeah.
to get experiences. We need to have, I need you to come back and go, hey, Jesse, we tried this, and we tried this, and we tried this, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
But because you had a week is how you were able to decipher it didn't work, as opposed to trying to cram everything in a very short amount of time, okay? And if something happens where I don't see you for 2 weeks, it's not going to impact the training.
Okay.
If anything, it gives you more time to work on
Sure.
stuff, okay? But that's not ever been an issue, okay? Other questions?
Not
You all right?
Oh, yeah,
I think we're good.
just listening.
So yeah, if you want to help expedite things, you can tell her, hey, Tina, we want the 3-week program. Please send us a contract so we can sign up, and then here's our availability.
Okay.
Okay. Now, my workload has kind of tripled in the past couple of months because I had to let some employees go. So I am covering shifts. So like yesterday, it was me with 50 dogs.
Wow.
Okay? Which is why I called them like, all right, I can't call. I got 50 dogs to take
Yeah,
care of. Okay.
yeah.
But I do transports now, so I pick up dogs in the morning and I drop off dogs in the evening. So really a lot of my availability is in the midday.
Oh.
So when you send her your availability, she's gonna cross-reference and then go, okay, here's where we have some
Yeah.
time slots available.
Okay. And an hour at a time?
Yes, correct, an hour
Okay.
at a time. Yep. Only time it takes more than an hour is if I'm ever like working with 2 dogs at once, but an hour is usually more than enough.
And would we be doing it here?
If you want it to be done in home, where are you guys located right now?
We're at 60th, like near the University of Chicago,
UIC?
UC.
UC.
So Hyde Park?
Hyde Park. Okay, gotcha. So you're in the city still.
Yeah.
If you want to do more in-home, you can. There's just a $50 upcharge for the travel.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to have it in person, but at your neighborhood location, perfectly fine. It would just be $50 per class. Probably by the 3rd class, because what can happen if we don't see it in the in-home is we're like gambling. Are we going to find dogs to try to work through this problem? Okay. So if you decided to do the first 2 at your home location, that's fine. If we don't see dogs, right, then by the 3rd one I go, you might want to have that one here because I can at least bring out a dog.
Got it. Yeah, I think we'd just do it here.
Yeah.
So,
Where we train doesn't matter because
Okay.
the way I teach you is to help you learn how to troubleshoot for the situation. So if we're inside, chances are our number is going to be lower because there's not as much stimulation, right? So that means when we go outside, our number is probably going to be higher. So if we're 35 here, I'll tell you, chances are going to be at least 35. When you go outside, probably going to be higher. Okay. Again, it's very just logic based. Once you understand it, you just adapt to the situation.
okay.
Okay. Other questions?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Good to go.
I guess my question for you would be, when she's ever become agitated and you've tried to control her, have you ever seen her try to bite at the leash or bite at you?
No.
No. Okay. Only reason why I ask is when we're dealing with reactivity, there's something that's called redirected aggression, which is the dog's being reactive to that dog. We want it to stop being reactive, so it redirects its frustration to the nearest thing, which is typically the leash and or the handler. Okay. 95% of the time, the problem's already present. So the owner will bring it to my attention. I go, good to know, because we have to work around that problem. Okay. So like I have a case right now who's another Pitbull. They came to me already telling me that the dog redirects. I go, good to know, because we're gonna have to plan for that problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if we're not seeing it already, chances are we're not gonna see it. But I just wanted to, again, make you aware. I do show you how to work around it and through it in case that happens. Because again, if I'm trying to stop the dog and they decide to redirect, if I don't work through the redirect, then we don't get anywhere. It's just part of the process, okay? But nothing that I've not seen before. I got into dog training for dogs like this. This is my niche. So nothing I've not seen before, just stuff that I want to make sure that my clients are aware of. So in case we're in that situation, they're like, well, just said this is a possibility. If you had brought to me like a doodle or a golden retriever that was reactive, I wouldn't even care about it. Like, I don't think I've ever seen one of those breeds or any other breed outside of a power breed or bully breed ever do that. It's always been some kind of power or bully breed because they're more assertive personality types. So if they're gonna, they're more likely to like fight back, so to speak. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think we're good.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you guys.
Yeah, you too.
So yeah, you can talk to Tina, and then in terms of the collar, we have them, so we're not worried about if we're gonna have it in time for the,
Okay.
for the lesson, whatever. I have
Great.
them in stock. Okay.
Excellent.
Awesome.
I'll give her back to you guys.
Thank you.
And if there's any questions you may have forgotten to ask, feel free to ping her with an email.
Okay.
She'll get to me, and I'll get back to her. Otherwise, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.